Hello and welcome to the Sound Up Seattle podcast, your one-stop shop for all things Seattle and Washington sports. I'm your host, Tyler Cartwright, joined as always by my co-host,
John Carey.
And we know that we're here together today and that John is going to put his hands in front of the camera and be talking with his hands because that is what he does.
I'm just so shy.
This is going to come out on Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to the listeners. I'm sure you'll pick up a bunch of other stuff over the course of the weekend, along with some little video shorts on YouTube and things like that. So we hope you enjoy. We've got Seahawks. We've got a little bit of Kraken. Big Sounders win this weekend. Huge. And some college football to talk about. John, anything to say before we get started?
No, exciting day. Let's get in.
All right, here is some Coyote Picnic. All right, John, first things first, huge win for the Seahawks. Huge win. 16-6 against the Cardinals, a weird score, to say the least. Initial reactions, got thoughts?
It happens. The way to victory that we predicted, we've been 50% completely wrong and 50% 100% right this season. It's been very shocking. Not a lot of slight missteps on our part. We've either really shanked the punt or we've kicked it out of the stadium. And what happened in this game is the Seattle defense showed up for a second straight week in a very big way, in a very big divisional game. 16 points for this offense against this Arizona Cardinals defense. You know, we were talking about this Cardinals defense is better than people have been giving it credit for, but that's still a failure in my opinion.
You know what's even worse? The offense only scored 9 points.
That's a very good point. Yeah, 6 of those points coming on a pick six. So 3 field goals generated. Oh, I'm sorry. One touchdown. They lost a point on the extra point. So 1 touchdown and a field goal generated by Geno Smith and these boys, and then a pick six. But their defense showed up in a huge way, holding this really dynamic Arizona offense to 6 points. And they were also doing a really good job of bending and not breaking. You know, I like to talk about that with a lot of, really good NFL defenses. And this is a team that does it. I mean, both of their field goals for the Cardinals, the longest was 35. So those were drives where they were, deep into Seattle territory, a 35 and a 22-yard field goal. And then the pick six was a 69-yard interception return. So another drive where the Cardinals had gotten deep into Seattle territory, and that's where the defense did a really good job of, standing stout. They were good all over the field, but that really impressed me. When you get to that spot, if you can limit points, you see things that happened today. 6 points allowed to a really good Cardinals offense. Kyler Murray threw the ball for almost 300 yards, and they only got 6 points. So my first and major thought is great job by the defense. Great coaching job defensively by our new head coach.
Yeah, I think what they did really well was take away the run. James Conner goes 7 carries for 8 yards total. That's just James Conner. Everybody talks about him as one of the premier running backs in the league at this point. He's done it for years. He's kind of like the Mike Evans of running backs. Does that feel right? That's
great. That's actually a better comparison than the one I was going to make. I was thinking he was giving me kind of Frank Gore vibes, where he's never a top 3 at the position guy, but he's just there every year for a decade. And you're like, is it still James Conner? And other than today, it normally is.
Yeah, so we took him out of the picture. Kyler Murray, only 2 rushes for 9 yards. We really confined them. We only gave up 49 yards total. The other side of the football, it's when it comes to the passing game of the Cardinals, really the only guy who tore us up was Trey McBride. They really just had to dump it to their tight end, 12 receptions for 133 yards. So he had a great game, but everybody else, we took Marvin Harrison Jr. out of the game. Again, James Conner, only 5 receptions for 41 yards. These are small numbers for this offense that was pretty explosive for most of the season. So a really great job by the Seahawks defense. I think this was a scheme game. It worked because the defense schemed well, like you were saying. And everybody else kind of just did their job on the offensive side of the ball. JSN, 6 receptions for 77 yards and our lone offensive touchdown. Really another great game by him, and he's really rounding into form here and what we were thinking we would see in this season. DK had a nice start to the game and then kind of petered out towards the middle and end of the game. He just 4 receptions for 60 yards, not a ton there, but really just an all-around solid game plan. And what it was the start of this game was so slow. I think it was 7 or 8 punts in the first 9 possessions or something like that. It was crazy.
Absolutely. Very slow start to the game.
So yeah, I think it was just a slow, methodical game by the Seahawks, and that's kind of like how they want to perform. They want to be the Nevada Wolfpack of the NFL. Like, they just want to play the game super slowly. You won't score, they won't score, and then eventually they're going to get something big, and that's what they were able to do.
Yeah, and that's could not be farther from the Seahawks team we saw early this season.
Yes,
the Seahawks team of the 46-point outing of the Detroit Lions. That was a team that said, okay, let's just see if we can outscore you. So it's nice to see them be able to win multiple ways.
Yes,
even if the way they're doing it right now is very defense centric with some struggling offensive play. So yeah. Defense is the story. Shout out, Julian Love, Devin Witherspoon. I think really our safeties and our DBs have been spectacular over these last 2 weeks. Front lines played okay, but it hasn't blown me away. Let's move to the other side of the ball a little bit. Kind of an interesting game for the offense. Another game. Obviously, we really held their running game in check. This is the second straight Seattle win where our running game has looked very inept. Our leader, Kenneth Walker, 16 carries for 41 yards, 2.5 yards per carry. Charbonnet only got the ball 6 times. So it's a game where we were really relying on the passing game, and Geno was solid. 22 for 31, 250, a touchdown and a pick. The pick was very costly.
Yes, in the end zone.
In the end zone, so that's 3 points off the board minimum. You hate to see that, but other than that, yeah. Do you have any big thoughts on the offensive output on this game?
Not a ton. I think that's something to note, though, is Geno's struggles in the red zone. I think he's gotten 3 or 4 interceptions in the red zone here, and I think what he's really got to do in those situations, he's trying to keep the play alive for a little too long.
Yeah.
We saw him capitalize in a good way against the 49ers when he held the ball for a little too long, but then was able to run and escape for a touchdown. But really, at the end of the day, you need just a few yards. Like, you don't need to throw the ball into tight coverage every single time. The back of the end zone is such a helpful defender when it comes to stopping teams in the red zone. That's why the bend don't break stuff works. And Geno is very susceptible.
Closes in, yeah.
Geno's just very susceptible to being in the kind of just making wrong decisions. Sometimes it feels like, and so that's where we've seen this team falter. I think the most, and it's that's the most frustrating play I feel like in football is the touchdown or interception in the end zone.
Absolutely, it's absolutely devastating, and it is frustrating because that's where Geno likes to throw his picks, is down there in the red zone. I think part of that's coming from a mentality that's developed over the last 2 years where it's like, Geno, we need you to go win us this game.
Yeah.
If you have to try to force it into a tight window, do it. He needs to get on board with the fact that this defense is winning them games right now. He needs to be mistake averse.
Yeah.
Especially in those situations. I know technically it's not a horrible place to throw a pick because the team you're giving it to has to go further, but that's way more devastating to me than getting picked off, at midfield. So he needs to know when we have points on the board, we can play this a little safer.
Yeah.
And just make good decisions. So, yeah, that's very frustrating, but he was solid. I guess I can't complain too much. He had some big plays down the stretch. Not to pat ourselves on the back too much. We already did this last week, but it was another confirmation of the JSN, assertion as the number one receiver on this team. There was no doubt last week, but it's nice to see him follow that up with a nice game where he leads the team in targets, receptions, and yards. He was really good today. So a really good win, a big win. Gosh, we talked about needing 3 of 4, and somehow we actually got it even after that Rams loss.
Yeah. Or, well, still have the potential to get it.
Sorry. Yeah, we still need it with the Jets here. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Yeah, we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. But, 2 impressive wins against division foes. I guess we kind of already did this. We do this every week. Is there anything you're just dying to say about their chances in terms of the division and a playoff spot? It looks like it's all pretty much the same as last week, other than the fact that the Niners are looking pretty dire. I
think that's the real case where a lot of these teams feel like they're being represented from past seasons.
Sure.
And the Niners are they're just not the team that they of 2022 or 2023. Like that's not them anymore. They look older. They look slower. Their defense is definitely not as stout. Just they've lost enough pieces where they haven't been able to pay them. This Rams team always feels like they're injured. Their defensive line is still good because of Jared Verse. But really, it just feels like they are unable to keep up with teams sometimes. Like, that's kind of how it feels with the Rams. And the Seahawks, in that game that they lost in overtime, it's like The Seahawks made way too many mistakes, and the Rams were still unable to put them away. And so I think the Rams are just not as good as they have been. McVay's a great coach. Things like that still can work, but I don't think they're as potent as, the 2020 Cooper Kupp Triple Crown season or anything like that.
Sure. They've been a frustrating case where, they just kind of held on. They did a great job of holding on this year while they went through all their injuries.
Yeah.
And then they finally got this offense back and healthy. First game against the Dolphins. They're like, okay, we're back. Cooper Kupp on one side, Puka Nacua on the other, Matt Stafford behind center, Kyron Williams standing next to him. Like, let's go. They've lost 2 of 3, and their one win was a barely scraped out win against the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
So the Rams, I'm still, just because they're not in the same situation with the Niners are just hurt and old and hurt, and also hurt. But the Rams are in a very different spot. They should be looking like their best selves right now, and they're really not. So I think I'm about ready to put my pin in the Niners season. I'm not quite there with the Rams. If they lose to the Saints this week, then I'm all the way in.
Yeah.
We'll call them cooked and move on. But I'm still waiting to see, because Stafford scares me and Cooper Kupp scares me a lot. So waiting on that. But yeah, hopefully, maybe this could be easier than we think. Maybe it is a 2-horse race at the top of the division.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you. It's like, is this, if the Rams, they're going to be 500 after this week. They should beat the Saints. If we beat the Jets, who do the Cardinals play this week? I don't actually remember off the top of my head.
I think it's division.
They play the Vikings.
Vikings. Good call.
Which could be a loss. The Seahawks could take the lead. They could be 7-5 with 2 6-6 teams below them.
Yeah.
How do we feel about the Seahawks' chances of winning the NFC West? Because, at the end of the day, that's the cleanest path to making the playoffs. They might be the 4 seed in the playoffs, but the Seahawks, I know they were at one point, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, plus 500, the worst odds to win the NFC West.
Yeah.
It's all of a sudden shifted. I don't know the odds right now, but I'm sure it's shifted to where they're probably the top team.
Yeah, it's them or the Cardinals, I'm sure. And yeah, I do think in terms of path, their path is probably the easiest. I think the problem is the Cardinals, the Rams, and the Hawks all essentially have the same schedule these last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
They all play at least 2 of the Bears, Vikings, Packers, which are all going to be hard games. And then they play each other. The Hawks play the Cards, Hawks play the Rams, Rams play the Cards. I think Rams also play the Niners. So there's still just so much to be worked out in the division that I feel good. I feel a lot better than I did last week. If they get the win against the Jets, I'll feel even better. But the thing is, there's just too much still undecided. And, for what it's worth, it has been a couple great weeks in a row by this defense. I want to see it again. And then I'm going to want to see it one more time. And then I might be ready to say, okay, this defense has finally arrived. But they've shown me inconsistency in the past. And with the way the offense is playing, I'm just not feeling good. Their high score in the last 4 weeks is 20 points. So their offense has been pretty disappointing here for a spell. I just need to see more. Yeah,
I think there's a question of, I don't think the Seahawks will ever be able to put away a team. I just don't think they're a team that's built to do that. And I think it's the same with the Rams. The Cardinals offensively feel like they should be able to put a team away. They could score 35 points to another team's 20 or whatever it is. So that's the thing that worries me about the Seahawks is they've got these games against the Vikings and the Packers, the Cardinals again in 2 weeks. It's those are games where no matter what, it will be coming down to the last possession, whether the Seahawks can close it out or if the Packers have the ball, they might be up 10 at that point. But it's the Packers have a very good chance of coming back and performing against this defense, even though we've seen them do well. So the Seahawks team, it scares me when it comes to actually closing the division and putting a gap between them and those other teams, especially in these last 6 weeks.
Yep, loud and clear. So looking ahead, the last 6 games of the season, they are going into their easiest one this week. This is the give-me of the next challenging 6. It is against the New York Jets in New York. Jets are 3-8. What do you think?
What's crazy to me is ESPN has this as a favorite towards the Jets. The odds don't necessarily say that, but the Jets have a 53.5% chance to win this game by ESPN standards. Do I believe that? No. The Seahawks need to be mistake-free, though. Geno is 12 touchdowns to 12 interceptions on the season. Aaron Rodgers, for all the slander that people have given him, he's 17 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. He doesn't, he's not getting the chunk yardage that he used to get, but he's still performing. He's mistake-free generally. They need to perform well. Like Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, these are good players. They need to do what they did against the Cardinals. You can compare a lot of the Jets team to this Cardinals team. Like James Conner and Breece Hall are very similar style players. Same with Garrett Wilson and kind of the Marvin Harrison Jr. of it all. Like this defense just needs to do what they've been doing. Otherwise, I think this Jets team has a chance.
That is a hot take. I lean all the way in the other direction. This Jets team has lost 7 of their last 8 games. Their one win coming in that kind of crazy Texans game where they hit the, Hail Mary at half and all that stuff. So, yeah, this team is floundering is what they are. And
we do love a flounderer.
7 of their last 8 with an old, tired quarterback that everyone's saying is about to retire. And in a must-win game for the Seahawks, I think this is the easiest win call of the year. I'm very, very confident that they will win.
I agree with you. I'm pointing out the concerns and the need for this defense to continue to do what they've been doing.
Correct, and they do, because Aaron Rodgers is a surgeon. His arm's starting to go, but he still knows where to put the ball. He doesn't make a lot of stupid mistakes. So play well, and we should be in good shape.
Yeah, I think our defensive backs need to have a big game here. Kobe Bryant needs to perform just as he did in this game against the Cardinals. We need to have Julian Love perform. Everybody needs to be good, especially, Ernest Jones needs to lead the team in tackles for the 3rd straight week. Just at that linebacker position, he's so, so important.
He's dynamic. I really like Ernest Jones. We haven't shouted him out enough. He's a talented player.
So I do think that this team, of all the teams that we're going to face the rest of the season, is the most beatable. They're, like you said, they're 3-8. They've lost 7 of their last 8. Like, I think the Seahawks will win this game, but there are still concerns. I still feel like the Jets have the personnel to perform at a high level.
Yeah, and isn't that the thing about them, too, is that's why they're such a disappointing 3-8 is you look at Aaron Rodgers throwing to Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen in the backfield, and you say, oh my God, they're going to put up points. They just haven't. So let's not be the exception to that rule.
Yes,
let's continue that trend. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I like the Seahawks in this game. Not super worried. Feeling good. I would take the -2 if I was betting on it.
I'm feeling pretty confident about this one. As the perpetual Seahawks pessimist and the doubter of every game, my jaws are going to be on the floor if Mike doesn't get the guys fired up for this one.
Yeah. Another thing to note from this Cardinals game, only 5 penalties for 51 yards. That's back-to-back games where it's 5 or less penalties by the Seahawks.
Which, by the way, is not great in the NFL, but it's a lot better than it has been.
Yes. I just wanted to shout them out. They've been doing a better job of limiting your own mistakes. In that way, like we've been saying, mistakes-free football is the best way the Seahawks team can win. That's one of the ways.
Yep. And costly ones, too. They've been doing a really good job limiting costly penalties. So I was watching the Ravens-Chargers game the other night, and they were just talking about, it's like, man, these Chargers, they don't, commit penalties, but when they do, they are so costly. It's always on 3rd and 3 where they have an offensive holding or something, like those devastating penalties.
Yeah,
so
turning a 3rd and short into 3rd and
exactly,
super long.
Yeah. 1st and 10, first down gets called back, and now it's 1st and 20, all that stuff. So, they've been doing a really good job of avoiding nonsense.
Yep. All right. Anything else to talk about with the Seahawks? I feel like, we've been talking about it for 20 minutes, and there's always more to be said. We could have more discussion on the NFC as a whole if we really wanted to, but we don't need to do that. We're 6-5.
And I do think a lot's going to come out in the wash here. Not only this week, but the following week. I think we'll know a lot. Obviously, we will. But with 4 weeks left, we'll know a lot more than we do now. I think we'll be able to put the fork in a couple of these NFC North, NFC West teams, hopefully. And hopefully a clear picture. Because it's one of those things where, would I be gobsmacked if the Rams were tied for first in the NFC West in 2 weeks? No, I wouldn't, because I think they have the talent, and I'm still not sure how I feel about the Cardinals. So,
all of these games all of these teams are within 1 game of each other.
Yeah, still, even the team in the Niners that were they're cooked, move them off. They're within 1 game.
Yeah. So we need this separation badly. Game against the Jets should be able to get us that. Hopefully.
Yeah, no doubt.